So, on behalf of the management team, thank you so very much for being here and giving us your valuable time. Now, the topic of my talk, as you can see on the slide here, is integrating risk management with IAM and SIEM for stronger security. And at the outset, I would like to point out this keyword for you, risk management. Because ultimately, that is what it is all about. It is all about risk and how you actually decrease risk. It's simple economics, economics 101. You have scarce resources that you've got to allocate. Now, these resources could be investment in technology, so you have to obviously spend money. It could be people resources. It could be other assets that you need to purchase. Now, where do you actually allocate these resources? In such a way that you bring your cybersecurity risk down. And once you bring your cybersecurity risk down, you also have to exhibit some sort of a positive ROI to management. Because you can adopt all this new technology, all that you want, but unless you're creating some positive impact, from some positive business impact for your companies, well then, it's only job half done. Ultimately, you have to show that there is positive business impact, the positive ROI. And you've got to actually integrate risk management with your identity and access management and SIEM to do so. So having said that, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Malta Edition, and I'm a security evangelist at ManageEngine. I've been with ManageEngine for close to a decade, so it's been 10 years for me in cybersecurity. And as part of my role, I keep myself updated about the latest attacks that different cyber criminals are perpetrating on organizations, what are the techniques that they are using. And I also keep myself updated about the different ways in which organizations can stop these attacks and protect their sensitive data. My work, in its own little way, enables our company, ManageEngine, to develop a solution called Log 360. Now, Log 360 is what we call a unified SIEM solution. It's got the ability to collect activity logs from multiple sources in a heterogeneous network, put them all together, correlate them, analyze them, and then alert you whenever there is an attack or an indicator of an attack. It also has DLP as well as cloud security capabilities. So that's a little bit about me. And let's get into the topic itself. Now, before we get into risk management, I would like to bring to you two things that happened in the not so distant past, two real-life examples. So this was an attack that happened not even 2 weeks ago. It happened on the 19th of September to be exact. And it was a cyber attack that disrupted major European airports. So we are talking airports such as Heathrow, Brussels, Berlin, and others. And I'm sure a lot of you know about this particular attack that happened. So the company itself was Collins Aerospace, and it's a subsidiary of RTX, which is a major aerospace and defense technology provider based in the United States. So it was an American company, but they had a lot of business operations here in Europe. And they provided IT systems for airlines and airports. So whenever passengers used to go in, it was a new system that was used to onboard these passengers as they were getting into the airport. Now that particular system was hit, and things came to a standstill. As many as 270 flights were either cancelled or grounded. It was delayed, and there were long queues, and people had to go back to the manual way of doing things. At first, though, the vendor said that it was a cyber disruption, but later on, we got to know that it was ransomware. The ENISA actually came out with their investigation. They said that it was ransomware. And in the back end, what happened was the news services. So that was a system that Collins Aerospace was using, and that was hit. And later on, we got to know that that was the initial foothold. The news system was the initial foothold. The attackers got in, and from there, they were able to dig down deeper. They were able to move laterally, escalate privileges, and then carry out this ransomware attack. It also came out during the investigation that multi-factor authentication, MFA, was not adopted completely. And that also was a weakness. that was exploited by attackers. So this is a very, very clear case of something simple going on, and if you have some of these basics done right, you'll be that much more secure. This is another attack that happened, again, just about a year ago, the Hellenic Open University ransomware attack. 813 GB of data was stolen, and this data included personal data, financial data, and even health data. A lot of students did have health data stored as well. The university was operating on that, and all of these were stolen. Now you can imagine, if these get stolen and they find their way into the dark web, that exact data can also be used for further attacks. So it's not just one attack happening at one time and we forget about it. If it gets into the wrong hands after it finds its way into the dark web, it can be used in the future as well. So this was yet another attack. And this proves the dire effects of ransomware. Now what about Malta? Well, research suggests that the public sector and government administration, that's hard hit in Malta. Close to 33% of attacks over the last 2 years, 2023 to 2025, have happened on the public sector here in Malta. You also have the gaming sector, which is more than 20% of the attacks, and then you have financial sector as well, which is close to 16% of attacks. So this is the case in Malta. And the most popular attacks are these: DDoS attacks, data breaches, and ransomware. Ultimately, when we say data breaches, that is what the attackers are after. It could be a ransomware attack, but even there, data is something that attackers are after. It could be done for various reasons. It could just be done to bring an organization down to its knees. But even in the case of ransomware, over the last couple of years, what we've seen is, we've seen cases of double extortion ransomware, where people are not just encrypting the data, and they are not done with just that. They are actually stealing the data, and in case the people are not paying up, they threaten to release the data publicly. So even their data gets stolen, data gets lost. DDoS attacks, of course, we see that also happening in Europe, particularly in Malta, where you can think that a very sensitive server, which is going to impact business, that gets hit by a DDoS attack. It could be a network of bots that cause this. And then services, very critical services are being disrupted. So we see a lot of that happening as well. Which is why you need certain technologies, right? You need a SIEM solution, you need an IAM solution. So with a SIEM, like I said earlier, it is able to connect to every part of your network, whether it's workstations, it's your Active Directory, it could be your system devices and your network devices, it could be your cloud services that you're using, it could be a truly heterogeneous network, and a SIEM solution is able to connect to all of these different endpoints or different parts of the network, get all of the logs in, and then is able to correlate them, is able to put A and B together. So you can imagine that an activity that happens in one part of the network, let's call that event A, and let's take another event, B, that happens in yet another part of the network. Taken separately, it's very benign, there is no problem. But then if you are able to stitch the two together, you get to know the larger story of what really happened. And that's what a SIEM solution is able to do. It's able to correlate across different systems, aggregate the logs from different servers, and tell you the big picture of what really happened. You also have data exfiltration monitoring of the SIEM solution. Now, have you heard of something called Cloud Access Security Protocol, CASB? Yes? Okay, few people. Think of it this way. About 5 years ago, with CASBs were thought of to be a separate solution altogether, a separate security solution altogether. But what we have seen of late is many vendors, including ManageEngine, and we'd like to say that we are at the forefront of this. We have actually integrated the CASB capability within our SIEM solution. So let's say that you have a case of an insider threat. Perhaps an employee is emailing certain sensitive data to themselves, to their cloud account, to their personal cloud account. At that point of time, with a CASB solution or a SIEM solution which has the CASB functionality, you're able to know what data is being leaked, where it is being leaked to, who's doing the leaking, what is the size of the data, and so on. So you can have certain policies and controls in place to restrict the download of sensitive data. So you could have classified the data as sensitive. You don't want to be treating every data as equal, so you classify the data as being sensitive or critical. And when that data is being leaked, and it is being leaked in huge volume, you know that something is wrong. You can have a rule in place, and you can stop that leakage from happening. Of course, credential misuse. Here's where a capability such as UABA, or User and Entity Behavior Analytics, comes to the fore. It is about anomaly detection at the end of the day, and a SIEM solution which has UABA features can do that. Typically, we have three different kinds of anomalies. You have time anomalies, count anomalies, and pattern anomalies. I'll give you very simple examples here. With a time anomaly, you're basically setting a baseline of expected activity for every user and every device in the network. So the system kind of learns over time. So given 2 weeks, it will just observe, and it will learn what is actually normal for every user and what is normal for every device in the network. And let's say there is a login that happens outside of what is expected. A user typically logs in between 9 and 10 a.m., but one fine day they are logging in at 12 midnight. That's a simple time anomaly. And that, what is expected can change for every user. The system will learn, and it will flag that anomaly for that particular user. The security analyst can then take the further actions. You also have count anomalies. So let's say that there is a very, very critical server. There is a very critical file server which has some business critical information, and it is expected that that server has 100 activities performed on it between 12 p.m. and 1 p.m. on Tuesday every week. So let's say, I'm just giving you an example here. It is expected that on Tuesday every week between 12 and 1, the system learns that 100 activities are absolutely fine. That's the baseline. But on a particular Tuesday, you have as many as 1,000 activities. So the volume is really, really high. The count is high. So that becomes a count anomaly, and that is something that can be flagged by a SIEM solution with anomaly detection capabilities. You also have pattern anomalies, and this is where you can look at chains of events. An attack is not just one isolated incident, right? So what does an attacker do? Once they get that initial foothold, they get into the system, they start discovering. So they will try and discover what the major assets of the company are. So they will lie low for a while. So they get in, maybe through a phishing attack. Once they get into the system, they will lie low for a while, and they will start running these scans and figuring out what that network is all about. Maybe they will figure out what the major security groups are, what are the major OUs, who are the privileged users, what are the GPOs, what are the domain policies, and they may execute a lot of PowerShell scripts to do this discovery. Once they do that discovery, and they have particular targets in their sight, they can then try to pivot to that target. So from one machine to the other, they are hopping. And as this is happening, this is called lateral movement. And they also want to escalate their privileges so that they finally get to domain admin, for example. So these are things that can be flagged as anomalies in a SIEM solution. So you need to have these user entity behavior analytics rules that are there. Sorry, not rules, because that will do it automatically for you. So it will discover all of those anomalies for you. And then if you kind of harden that with your own rules, then you are doubly secure. That is what a SIEM solution is able to give you. Right? Take a look at this. These are some additional capabilities of a SIEM. You also have threat intelligence. Think of it this way. There are so many companies like Webroot and so on, which are in the business of threat intelligence. They are looking at the latest attacks that have affected organizations around the world, and they have categories for attacks as well. So they know that this particular attack is especially relevant for a particular industry. So all of that threat intelligence is out there. A SIEM solution that is able to connect to these threat intelligence feed providers, and then it gives you the ability to use that information, the rest of the information that you observe in the network. That will make it much more secure. You're able to use the threat intelligence feeds as part of the correlation tool. Sometime back, I made the point about ransomware and how data gets stolen in ransomware and it is leaked onto the dark web. Many times credentials are also leaked into the dark web. So, as an example, with Log 360, what we do is we integrate with Constellar Threat Intelligence, and we are able to tell you if a particular user's credential is leaked onto the dark web, and it will alert you right there. So you would know that yes, user A, their credentials have been leaked into the dark web, and then you can take further action. That is how things like threat intelligence is going to be so critical. You also get to see when malicious IPs are in communication with your network. In any attack, right, what happens is a cyber attacker would want to do something called command and control. Here's where they're actually communicating with your network, so to speak, and they'll be having this, they'll be at a remote location and they'll be trying to command your network and control your network. So if that has been observed in the wild already, because of your threat intelligence feeds, you get to know that too. A SIEM solution that connects to these threat intelligence feeds will obviously make it more secure. Now, Alexia spoke about NIS2 and DORA. Of course, you also have the GDPR and ISO 27001. In a good SIEM solution, you have these capabilities inbuilt. So you have ready-made reports for each of these compliances. You can access these reports, and it will tell you what particular article of this regulation it is, what is the requirement of that article, and then it will give you out-of-the-box reports that you can actually use to ensure that you stay compliant with these regulations. So that is about SIEM, Security Information and Event Management. So a SIEM solution has two major use cases, one of security and one of compliance. Compliance is the bare minimum of what you need. In case you are in the nascent stages of adopting a SIEM solution, of course with NIS2 and DORA being implemented, you would want to ensure that you do it for the compliance reasons. But going beyond that, a SIEM solution is also going to help you be proactively secure. Then of course you have the role of identity and access management. If a SIEM is all about detection, it's after the fact. An attack has happened and you're looking for the telltale signs of something going wrong, something not being optimal in the network. That's what a SIEM is going to help you with. And identity and access management solution is about what happens before an attack. So it's all about ensuring that you're proactively secure, you have the right privileges and permissions in place, you have the right policies in place, and you have the right management in place, so that you decrease the chances of an attack happening in the first place. Now both of these, that is an IAM and SIEM working in tandem, working together, is absolutely critical. When it comes to an IAM, these are some of the things that you need to look for. strong authentication. So you want to enforce multi-factor authentication for all privileged and sensitive accounts. And when we say multi-factor authentication, it is not just two-factor authentication. Maybe you want to go with 3 factors of authentication too, along with SSO, by the way. So it is not that if you have 3 factors of authentication, you will lead to user frustration. If you integrate this with SSO, then it doesn't have to be that way. So that is what strong authentication. We can also make it adaptive authentication. So apart from multi-factor authentication, you can also make it adaptive in that depending upon the realities of what is happening with a particular user or a device. So let's say a user is logging on from a remote location and they are not known to log on from that remote location. So it's not something that the system expects. Then ideally you would want something called adaptive authentication. So maybe in that case you want 3 factors of authentication, or you want an additional factor of authentication. So those kind of things can be done with adaptive authentication. You also have least privilege and role-based access control. You want to ensure that no single account has broad system access, and only so much access is given as is needed to get the job done. Let's take a very real life sort of example here. Let's say that there are 2 users. User A is from the sales team and user B is from the marketing team. And they need to collaborate with one another for a particular project. And this project is going to run for 1 month. So ideally speaking, what you would need is for user A to get resources or access to resources that user B typically uses. So they would need access to what the sales team usually has access to. But they will need it for only 1 month. So there's got to be a process in place for you to authenticate all of that, for you to authorize all of that. So it's got to go through an approval process. And once you get those permissions and the project runs its course, let's say that the objectives of the business are being met, at that point of time you will need to revoke that access, and that has to be automated. Otherwise, what may happen is something called privilege creep. So if you don't automate that revoking of the permission, over time, you may just, the system administrator may just forget, and the person is involved in multiple projects, and over time it would lead to a privilege creep sort of situation, and you wouldn't want that. That's something that can lead to insider threat, but also it can be exploited by external attackers. So if an external attacker gets to know that the company does not have a proper IAM solution in place, and they, through their own reconnaissance process, they know that these are the top or privileged accounts that they need to go after, they can then wage a war. They can do these phishing wars, and they can write compelling emails to this user, and they will get access. And they know that this is a privileged account, and once they get access to that privileged account, of course, this account has access to multiple assets in the company. You also have life cycle management. Right from the time an employee is onboarded into the company to the time when they probably move between departments, to the time when they probably ultimately decide to leave the organization. That is called life cycle management, and you need to ensure that all of that is in place as well. So what we've done thus far is we made a very strong case for IAM and SIEM, and we've also gone with the fact that there are so many cyber attacks that are happening. We also have compliance requirements. SIEMs and IAM solutions are going to help you with it. But there is a more question to ask. Is it really going to help you with it? And to what extent will it help you? At the end of the day, you need to make sure that your investment solves a business purpose. You need to exhibit the positive ROI to your management before you implement any technology, whether it be SIEM or IAM or any other cybersecurity solution. So there are 2 questions to ask here. Given your limited resources, are you confident that your initiatives are addressing the largest security risks to your organization? Now, at first go, many people would probably say yes, because people believe that they are doing things the right way, they are making good use of the IT budget that they receive, and they have made all the right investments. But then if you go ahead and ask this question, how do you demonstrate that your initiatives are addressing the largest security risks to your organization's assets? Now, how do you prove it? How do you actually prove that the investments, the IT investments, the security investments that you've made actually is going to lead to something positive for the business? Well, that's where you need to be a little more quantitative. You need to be a little more numbers driven. It can't be so subjective anymore. And that is why you need a risk assessment. You need a comprehensive risk assessment. So it all starts with quantifying the level of risk that your organization is exposed to. And then from there, identifying your top risks. What is it that your organization is at most risk from? And then making a decision about, yes, these are the risks that I mostly face. Most critical risks are maybe these 5 risks. And this is what I need to invest in to bring that risk down. Which is where we get into the concept of a heat map. So you have 2 axes here. You have impact on the y-axis. So you have very low all the way to very high for impact. And you also have likelihood or the probability of something going wrong on the x-axis. Again, very low to very high. And you're basically plotting all of your risks in a 2D grid. So let's say that this is the risk of ransomware, and that is something that you've identified is very high on likelihood and very high on impact. So your ransomware risk is right there. It's going to be a critical risk, right? And you want to take some measures to bring that risk down in the next quarter or whatever your monitoring period is. So maybe it will be 6 months or it will be the next quarter, whatever the case may be. So you plot this at the end of 1 quarter, this sort of a heat map or a risk map, and then you see how this compares to what happens in the next quarter. So you have a comparable heat map for quarter 2, and you basically watching if the risk of ransomware actually come down. You want it to ideally move to the left, right? So you want to see if it's actually coming down. Now, how do you do this? How do you actually plot this? So it's all fine and dandy. We can say that it's a 2D grid. We just say likelihood and impact. But how do you do this? How do you get started with this? Well, a lot of information exists right within your organizations. And since most of you are from the IT field, it all starts with you. Perhaps you have a small IT team, or maybe you have a large IT team. Just ask around, and yes, there is a little subjective, and that is absolutely okay. To begin with, it is at least something. So you can actually ask around and get information from people about what the largest risks are, what the likelihood is of that risk manifesting itself within the next 12 months. And if it were to manifest itself within the next 12 months, what is the impact going to be? Is it going to be very low or is it going to be very high? The probability, is it going to be very low or is it going to be very high? Yes, it is subjective, but it is still a starting point. So that's how you get started with this. But if you actually want to go to the next level, right? If you want to take your risk management to the next level, you want to be more quantitative, and we'll be going over that in a bit as well. Now take a look at this. Once you come up with a risk heat map and you identify your top risks, you can then make a decision about what technologies you want to invest in. Now these technologies could be IAM, SIEM, or any other cybersecurity solution that you want to invest in. That is one way of thinking of things, and it can be a data-driven decision tool. But even otherwise, let's say you already have a basic IAM or SIEM solution in place because you have to take care of your compliance requirements. You can get started with risk management even from there, from that being the starting point. So you can approach this in 2 ways. The major point I'm trying to drive home is try and do something like this. Try and do some sort of a risk management, or maybe you can think of something on your own, something that is more apt for your organization. You can do that too. But try and have some sort of a risk management process in place. That's a major point. And you can make use of your IAM and SIEM to drive this as well. So you can actually go ahead and look at what are the percentages of privileged accounts versus least privileged enforcement, the number of accounts with MFA enforced versus not enforced, dormant or orphan accounts. Your IAM solution is actually able to give you a list of all your dormant accounts or inactive accounts. So you can take a look at that. The number of failed login attempts. So these are things from the IAM side. And from the SIEM side, how big of a problem is it in terms of are you having a whole lot of attacks? What is the frequency of attack? Is there lateral movement and privilege escalation attempts? And if so, how many are happening in a given time period? So these are things that you can actually get from a SIEM solution in order to drive this. Or if you go from here, you would want to probably invest in an IAM and SIEM. So this is all about how you do it in a subjective or a qualitative manner, which is a good starting point. But if you want to go beyond that, if you want to take your risk management to the next level, then you need to quantify cyber risk. This is where you actually come up with a number for your cyber risk, and then you will be watching if that number is actually going in the right direction. Basically, it's decreasing over time. You can even relate this number to a currency value, so something like euros. So you would say that, well, this is the cyber risk that we as an organization are exposed to, and that translates to this much in euros, and that you could potentially lose. But then if we bring it down to so and so number, then we don't stand to lose that much. So there is a delta of benefit, and with that you can actually showcase the ROI to your organization and to your management. Now, one way of doing that is fair analysis of information risk, which kind of looks at it in a holistic manner, right from proactivity, response, replacement, fines and judgment, competitive advantage as well. A cyber attack at the end of the day can lead to certain competitive disadvantages or you losing that competitive advantage, especially let's say if intellectual property is involved. If that gets into the wrong hand, then maybe you lose the competitive advantage. There is also the reputation. So it's not just the tangibles, but even the intangibles that the fair analysis of information risk that actually uses. So with FAIR, what happens is your risk itself is divided into two parts, your loss event frequency and your loss magnitude. How often is something bad going to happen, and when it does, how bad is it going to be? So here we introduce the probability into the risk, right? So, and you not work with very clear-cut numbers. So for example, you can't say that in case this risk was to manifest itself, there will be $100,000 or 100,000 euros in loss. You would have a range. You'd probably say 80,000 to 100,000. That it's not a deterministic model, but a stochastic model that you would use. And even the loss given frequency, you would not say that it happens twice a year. You again have a range. So you're working with ranges over here, and you work with probabilities. And your loss frequency itself is divided into threat event frequency and vulnerabilities. Loss magnitude is primary loss and secondary loss. And ultimately you come up with the overall risk for the organization. With this, what happens is you would be plotting. So it would be like a graph, and you would know that there is so much probability, or let's say that there is a 20% probability that you stand to lose $100,000 in case this risk was to manifest itself in the next 12 months. So that would be the ultimate outcome that you would be arriving at, and there is something called a Monte Carlo simulation that you would do in order to arrive at this. So if you want to have a further discussion, a deeper discussion on this, I'm available. You can come and we can talk about it. I really enjoyed talking about this actually. So that's how you arrive at risk, and then you make a decision on whether you want to invest in a particular solution like a SIEM, IAM or not. Top 10 security operations use cases. Now this is basically something that I have seen after conversations with a lot of our customers of Log360, which is our SIEM solution. These are the top security operations use cases that customers have highlighted to me. Now you can see in this list that a lot of these use cases are very much part of a larger kill chain. So these could be components of the larger attack that an attacker is waging on an organization. So these are things that you would absolutely want to ensure that you have the rules in place, or you have a UEBA system that does it automatically for you. So here's an attack scenario. Insider exploitation of citizen PII via cloud storage. So I kind of alluded to this example some time back as well. So let's say a public sector employee with legitimate access downloads thousands of citizen records, and the data is uploaded to personal cloud accounts like Dropbox. Traditional perimeter defenses fail because access appears absolutely normal. But then if you have the right DLP in place, or a DLP-enabled SIEM, you're actually able to see this. You have the rules in place, and you also have anomaly detection in place to know that there is something going on. And you can not just detect it by using the correlation, but you can also respond to it. You can actually block that particular action from happening. So as the download is happening, or as the upload is happening, you can have policies in place to stop that from happening. The era of AI-based cyber defense. Now, I was just looking at the board over there. By the way, I invite you all to take part in that. So we have a small activity where on these sticky notes you can write your largest cybersecurity things that you're concerned about, and you can post over there. And a few people were actually talking about AI. A few also spoke about ransomware. So AI. Now, AI in the wrong hands is a bad thing because it can be used to launch cyber attacks. AI in the good hands can be used for all the good things, so it can be used to defend against cyber attacks. It goes without saying, and many of you probably know this as well, that with the advent of AI, even novices are getting extremely good at launching these cyber attacks. So you have cases where very compelling and convincing phishing emails are being written. Everything is grammatically correct. There are no spelling mistakes, and people are just getting that initial access to a social engineering attack like phishing. We also have cases where malware is polymorphous. A malware that gets into an environment, it studies the environment, and it figures out what defenses the company has in place. It figures out the realities of that environment, and then it kind of morphs itself to become more powerful, to become more successful. So on the fly, it is able to morph itself. So these are things that we are seeing. We also see cases of data poisoning. We have so many organizations getting into all of these AI models. Obviously for the model to work, the training data needs to be good. If the training data itself is tampered with, so if the attacker is able to get into the training data and tampers it, then what you get as an output is also not going to be what you expect. It's going to be an adverse output. And we see a lot of cases of that happening too. And these are conversations that I've had with my customers. So that is what is happening from the attacker's point of view. What you have in front of you is from the defender's point of view. You have predictive AI for protection, and you have prescriptive AI for detection. And these are the different ways in which you can use it for protection. One of the ways is proactive threat hunting. What is a threat hunt? It's basically finding something about your network that you don't yet know. So it's not that you have received an alert about something going wrong in the network, even though that is critical too. A SIEM solution is able to help you do that. But with proactive threat hunting, what you would do is you're actually hypothesizing. You're making up a hypothesis that this particular user or this privileged user account or a group of privileged user accounts from a particular department where they are at risk from these threats, why don't I go and test that hypothesis? So that is proactive threat hunting. So you would test that hypothesis, you would figure out whether that's true or not. Of course, it would be an intelligent hypothesis based on your experience. You can actually use AI to do that, and that is something that ManageEngine down the line, our vision is to also have these capabilities. You also have prediction of attacker activity. So depending upon the realities of the network, what are the loopholes of that network? What are the vulnerabilities of that network? And given those vulnerabilities, can we go ahead and predict the attacker's activity? Can we predict A to Z what are the steps that an attacker would take? And you can actually use AI to do this. And in case this gets integrated with something called the minor attack framework, where you have tactics, techniques, and procedures, you can actually come up with a graph or a pictorial representation of possible attacker activities within the network. So again, AI could be used over there. When it comes to detection, I spoke about UEBA, right? So that is more machine learning than AI. But you also have attack path visualization, where let's say an attack has already happened, and you need to go back in time and figure out what really happened so that it doesn't happen again. You want to learn from this attack. Well, AI can graph that out for you. Intelligent phishing identification, where you're looking at, let's say, an email, and you're not just looking at things like spelling mistakes and grammatical mistakes, but you're also looking at things like sentiment analysis, the tone of the email, those sort of things. So we can use it for such things as well. So this is the era of AI-based cyber defense. One thing to note here, and it goes back to the earlier point, ensure that if you are adopting these technologies, it makes sense from a risk management perspective. You don't want to be investing in AI just because somebody else is doing it or that is a trend in the market. But if you can actually prove to your management that these are the risks that you are afflicted by, and in case you adopt these AI tools and technologies, you are able to decrease your risk, that is when you actually go ahead and adopt these technologies. You also have reactive AI for remediation. So this is where, let's say an attack has happened, how do you get back up once again? What do you do to ensure that the damage is curtailed, is actually limited? That is what remediation is. It is about getting back up in quick time. Take a look at this, immersive security training simulations. So we all speak about user awareness and the users being the weakest link. Can you imagine a future where, let's say, a user does a less than optimal action, and instead of waiting until the end of the year to impart that cybersecurity knowledge or cybersecurity awareness to the user, it just becomes an annual exercise in that case. But right then and there, as and when that activity is taking place, you have something called a micro-learning module that pops up. Or to make it even simpler, you just have a pop-up that tells the user why what they're doing is less than optimal, why they shouldn't be doing that. And that is micro-learning at a most relevant time. So as and when a user does it, you can actually deploy such solutions. And this is something that is in our vision as well. And you can think about bringing user education and VR technology together. So can we gamify it in a very real-life setting so that the users become that much more educated and the organization in turn becomes that much more secure. A digital assistant for employees, and again, this goes back to how we can empower users. Because at the end of the day, you want to give power to each and every user. So what I have here on this slide is not just about ManageEngine, but also about what we as Zoe Corporation, the parent company, right? What is the vision for us? It is about empowering users to get their job done at any time in a secure way. So how can we bring all of these things together to really empower the user and to increase their productivity? So that is what we have here. Think of a future where every person, every employee of an organization has these digital assistants at their disposal. Something like a data assistant or a personal assistant, an HR assistant. Let's say it's a new employee who joins the company, and there are certain administrative things that they need to get done on day one. Can we actually have an agent that helps with that? Can we have a data assistant that helps them with the right way to share information, the right way to collaborate? That is the kind of future that we, as Zoe Corporation, are looking towards. Have any of you read the book called Brave New World? No? By Aldous Huxley. Have you seen a movie called Demolition Man? Yeah. So it's about the future, right? Like what happens in the future? I mean, the possibilities are endless. Who has seen Minority Report? Pre-calls, many people. I mean, those were things of dreams, right, back then, and it's not so. Well, it is still far-fetched, but it is not as far-fetched as they were back then. So this is about the identity fabric, and this is where ManageEngine is going towards. Different elements of an identity and access management solution. Well, they're all going to come together in a seamless and smooth manner to give you this identity fabric. So all of these different components of IAM coming together, that gives you the identity fabric. And our approach towards SIEM is this right here. So earlier, what we were looking at was different parts of the network. So you could have the different user identities and device identities. You had endpoints, you had the network itself, the data, applications, your cloud infrastructure. And activities on all of these would produce events, logs, metrics, and telemetry. Traditionally, you would then have different solutions all doing their own thing. So you have an identity security solution, you have an endpoint security solution, and so on. And these solutions would give you these capabilities. But what we are going towards as the future beckons us is we are going towards what we call a unified security platform or a security analytics and automation solution, where these are not just distinct products, but it's truly a platform. Apart from giving you the capabilities of these solutions, the platform is also able to give the power to you so that you can extend the capabilities of the solution itself. So if you come from, let's say, a particular industry, let's say the shipping industry or the gaming industry, there are certain things that are unique about your company, about your industry. Maybe you have a very specialized device that provides log sources in a unique format, and you need to understand those, you need to analyze those log formats. Perhaps going beyond the security use case, you also have operational use cases. If you really think down to the basics, a SIEM solution is able to make sense of different activities, right? So even from an operational point of view, let's say you have an IoT device. If you're able to collect logs from those IoT devices, then you'll be able to ensure that those IoT devices are highly available. If there are times when those IoT devices maybe are not, in terms of the health, they're not optimal, you get to know all of those things. And then when you do this, and on top of that, this is something from our parent company, Zoe Corporation. You have things like orchestration, embedded AI, and so on. Unified analytics, you truly have a platform. And rather than just providing these capabilities, you have these outcomes. Outcomes like cyber resilience, disaster recovery, zero trust, and GRC, and so on. So this is the vision of ManageEngine. This is where we're going to go with it. And we would like to have you as part of, of this as well. So these are the different solutions in ManageEngine, and like I said, it is all going towards that very integrated platform in terms of as less, let's say, endpoint agents as possible and making it truly integrated and seamless. And with that, I thank you all. Thanks so much for being here. Just a few parting words. So you have a risk management checklist kept at your places. You can make use of that. There's also a survey on cybersecurity. This is to understand the main concerns and challenges of organizations in Malta. You have that in the bag that's given to you. So if you take that survey, we'll be sure to share the results with you. So we're actually running this seminar we had it in Athens, and then we're having it here today. And then in a couple of days' time, we have it in Cyprus. So we'll be able to share what other people in IT are thinking as well. And of course, every product in ManageEngine, there's a free trial. You can try it out for 30 days at zero cost and no risk. Thank you.
My session is not predominantly into the concepts, but I'm going to directly get inside the solutions that we have in ManageEngine. On every single challenge that Ram has spoke about, I am going to give you the solution here in my session. That's going to be my agenda for today. We're going to be discussing about a few use cases, followed by some of the point features that we have in our product. So, just a quick introduction about the identities, the importance of identities. So, what are identities in the first place? Identities are pretty much every single employee that you have in the organization are the identities. And you have weaker identities, you have stronger identities, and there are some identities that set policies. There are some identities always that will breach the policies as well. So it's going to be a mixed culture. Even it happens in Zoho Corporation as well. I'm going to tell you as and when required. First of all, identities refers to the digital representation of the users, devices, applications, or it could even be a services where you're running in your IT infrastructure. Okay, so what would the identities generally do, right? They would ask for some permissions, right? They would ask you for some permissions for the sensitive files and folders that you have, or it could be an application. The application might be very sensitive. It could be a CRM where you hold the information about your customers. Let's say you run a bank and the bank has a customer's repository. What would these identities would ask? Hey, I need to have an access to this particular customer's branch. I need to have an access to this particular customer for many reasons, right? And you are, all the folks from the IT department is going to give permissions to all of these identities. Now, this is where the challenge comes into the picture. To give you a clear context, this is what the ecosystem of identities, right? Like I said, the identities will ask for some kind of access, and those access needs to be given based on policies. And the policies, you have to have a very strict policies in place. You cannot give permissions for anything and everything that is wrapped up with the sensitive data that you have. Therefore, you need to have certain policies on providing it to the identities no matter who they are. And it has to be governed by your organization. You have to have a clear policies, and these policies are executed in the right way, or if there is any loopholes on the policies, just to make sure that if everything is given as per the policies, you have to govern it, right? Now, who is going to govern it? That's going to be the challenging part. And how are you assessing your environment? How are you assessing your infrastructure when it comes to these kind of permissions, when it comes to the identities that you have? That's going to be the biggest question, and that's going to be the biggest challenge that every customers are facing as far as ManageEngine is concerned. When it comes to the different identities, you have plenty of things. You have human identities, you have machine identities, and you have application identities as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, I just would like to start with one particular attack, which is something you may not be aware of. Evision attack. How many of you are aware of the attack named Evision? Evision, E-V-I-S-I-O-N. Okay, I tell you the length and the depth of this particular attack. How many of you have driven the automated cars? Tesla? Automated cars? I guess it's not so famous in Malta because I have seen the roads are a bit narrow. So perhaps if you go to countries like USA or Australia, where I think Tesla is quite famous there. Right. Why is Tesla so famous? It's because the car can go without a driver, right? Okay, let's put it in this way. You have a car, you drive all by yourself, right? There are certain things that you have to follow. Okay, you know, there is a basic rule which exists for centuries where on a traffic signal, if you have the traffic light red in color, the car is supposed to stop, correct? How many of you agree to it? You have to stop when the traffic light is red. Yeah, that's the pattern. The same pattern would be followed by the automated cars as well. For example, the same Tesla needs to stop if at all the traffic light is red in color. Now, understanding this as a pattern, the intruders is not going to spend much of their time in breaking the security system of the car, but rather they are going to inject some malicious code in the traffic light. So the traffic light is going to pass some bad instruction to the car, and understanding those instructions rather than stopping at the red light, the car is going to take a 4x speed. Imagine what would be the situation if it happens. It is going to cost some life, correct? That is how the intruders are going to get sophisticated with the recent increase in the AI. So the invasion of these kind of cyber attack is going to be more and more sophisticated, and it's going to be more and more persistent, more distributed, and it's going to be more targeted as well. The best example I can say when it is more targeted, ladies and gentlemen, the recent survey says that once again, these bad actors are targeting more towards the identities. When I say identities, it could be individual person in your organization. That could be CEO, CFO, CIOs, so on and so forth. Right? So, if at all the information of your organization, any identities has been leaked out, you are in a great danger. Please understand that. Okay. Now I have a solution for you with ManageEngine. Of course, I am not going to emphasize more towards ManageEngine. Being a technical consultant, I don't have to focus more towards the solution what we have as a vendor, but I'll try to be as generic as possible. Okay. What are the 3 different techniques using which you can secure your identities? The first option, as my dear friend Ramas mentioned, you can strengthen your identity security, harden the privilege access, and automate identity hygiene. These, in my opinion, are 3 different strategies where you can use it to secure your identities. Now, I'm going to complement these three strategies with what we have as a vendor with ManageEngine. Okay, first thing, strengthen your identity security. Okay, you have to implement MFA. For that reason, I'm not going to go over these kind of attacks. I really apologize for that. Okay, so implementing MFA would be the best way. First best way in order to secure your identities. Hope I'm pretty much aligned with what Ram has said in his previous session. Let's say, okay, I put this in a very personal perspective. Why this MFA is very critical, ladies and gentlemen. I give you a scenario right here. I am an employee of the company called Zoho Corporation. If I need to have access to some of the sensitive data that I have in my organization, how can I do it? What is the best way? I want access to a CRM, which is pretty much internal, not exposed to the outside world. But from here, sitting from Malta, I want to have access to that application. How can I do it? VPN? Yes? Okay, great, VPN. Now what I have to do is, I have to initiate my VPN client by giving an authentication. So the VPN is now authenticated, and now what the network would understand me as soon as I have initiated the VPN is, it is going to think, okay, this guy is inside my organization, so I have to give him all the access what he has within my organization. So whenever I go and access to the CRM, I will be directly allowed in because I have a single sign-on module enabled. If anything and everything that I have to do as if I am within the network, this network is going to do that for me. So this is where the most challenging picture comes into the picture. What if the VPN has been compromised by a bad actor? Okay? Now, I'm going to emphasize the zero trust module right here. What is a zero trust? Zero trust works on three key principles. Number one, never trust anyone, always verify. How can you implement the zero trust in a condition of having a VPN? Okay? So, never trust anyone doesn't mean you have to have a paranoid face. No, I'm not trusting you. No, I'm not trusting you. No, it's not of that kind. Okay? You will have to always verify the user if and when required. So how can you do it? How can you implement the zero trust within your organization? Okay? Once again, going back to the same scenario, the user accessing some sensitive resource via VPN, there is going to be a breakage. So the authentication will be broken into pieces, and the re-authentication will happen if and when required. To make it very simple, this is what going to happen. I'm going to authenticate to my VPN, and then I'm going to access to the CRM. That is going to be a re-authentication. Then I'm going to access something in my computer. I wanted to run it with administrator's prompt, where an admin credential is required. There is going to be a re-authentication. I'm going to access to some sensitive files and folders. There is going to be a re-authentication. This is exactly what the MFA is going to do for you. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a product called AD Self-Service Plus, which can do this. Okay? It is not just the MFA for your endpoints, where apart from the basic authentication, there is going to be multiple re-authentication that needs to validate the user in order to log into the computer. That is something we have it in the AD Self-Service Plus, which is the basic MFA. On top of it, if only the user comes via the VPN, if the user is going to access to some sensitive resource or if the user is going to run something using the command prompt, then there are re-authentication occurs. This is what you call it as adaptive MFA, which is available in our product. Okay, so it is not a regular MFA, it's adaptive MFA, which can populate if only it is needed based on the conditions what you have set in the product. There are lots of conditions could be applied, which I can explain you with a one-on-one session, but that's readily available in the tool. Now, I have a quick question, my traditional question for you all. Can anyone give me a difference between password reset and password change? Anybody? I think the best, the person who's going to give me the best answer will receive a gift. Once again, difference between two actions, password reset, password change. Who wants to go first? Looks similar, right? How many of you think it's similar? Reset and change. Are they similar in the first place? Yes, no?
Yes.
Okay, so there are some yes somewhere. Who said yes? Okay, great, yes. Can you please explain the difference? And my dear friend Moises is raising his hand because he knows technical things way beyond what I know, but I'm not going to let him to speak. Okay, yeah, please.
You said we are going to put the same information, but we're going to change the password. Change, I think we're going to change the password.
Okay, I think that's a great answer to start with. Yes, sir.
Change password, but you can do it yourself. But the same, we need to modify.
Okay, I think I got your context here. Change password can be done by the employees. Password reset has to be done by the administrator. Okay, that's a great one. Yeah. Any more answers? Something you can just get it from the screenshot as such. Okay, I give you a scenario. That's going to be the direct answer which I'm expecting. Okay. I hope everybody has done password change in your organization, because password policy is something that's mandatory for every entities in your organization. If you have not, if you're not having the password policy implemented, then I would say your infrastructure is quite vulnerable. Okay, assuming that it is not, you have the best password policy implemented, and you have to change your password once in every 30, 60 or 90 days, assuming that you have this kind of setup available. If you have a password called password at 123, I mean the current password is, you want to change it to you want to change your password, and can you reuse the same password at 123? How many of you say yes? No? 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 Okay, great. Now, I am going to reset a user's password as an administrator of my Active Directory. Can I reset the password to password at 123? Remember, that's the same password the user is currently using. How many of you say yes and how many of you say no? Let's say, how many of you say yes? As an administrator, if I wanted to reset the password, I can use the same password that the user is already using or have used before. Yes? Yeah. Yes. Okay. Right. Great. Thank you. Thank you for being so attentive. And the scenario is, yes, absolutely. Because when you change your password, the Active Directory history settings will be remembered. At the same time, when you reset your password, the history settings will not be remembered. Now that's one of the key loophole what Active Directory has. Ladies and gentlemen, look what we have. We have a tool called AD Self-Service Plus, where you can do both the actions, password reset as well as password change. In all of these cases, see what are all the features the tool is going to do. It has plenty of things. The tool has integrated with a third-party platform called Have I Been Pawned, where you have all kinds of breached password in that database. So, if any of your user tries to change or reset the password that is available in the breached list, that cannot be the user's password. That's how the tool is. The tool is built with absolute security features that will ensure your users are having a very complicated password. And don't worry about users forgetting that password. At any point of time, if they want to use the tool for changing or resetting it, they can absolutely do it. That is what the feature we have. So two key features I would like to emphasize: endpoint MFA, password history settings. Apart from this, you have lots of other features like self-update, we have SSO, we have account unlock, so on and so forth. There is one free feature we have it, which can send a reminder email to the users about password expiration. So there will be a notification sent to the users about the password expiration date and time, so they can use our tool for changing their password. That's what we have within the application called the password self-service. Okay, now comes the most critical thing as an administrator. Now I want you all to please give me some suggestions. Please give me some suggestions. Deprovisioning an account. Okay, let's say a user wants to leave the organization. How would you handle the situation? I'm sure the first thing what you are going to do is you will be disabling the account. And what is next? Can you share your share this information? What would you do after disabling that user? You're going to leave that user in Active Directory forever, or are you going to take some more actions? Can anyone please tell me? Anybody? Anybody?
What are you asking? What should happen or what is happening actually?
I want to know what you're doing currently. How would you handle a offboarding process in your organization? Anybody? I'm not going to. Yes, sir. Please. No. Aloysius, this one. Can you turn this on, please?
So, first of all, auditing the organization, right? Before you disable the account, first you need to check if there is any share folder permissions that this user has access. Locally or externally, from SharePoint server. This one will need to be disabled with access first. Second, you will need to check for these permissions for VPN connections for any connection that this user has been for access for this one. You need to disable. So this is access management process. Then you need to check this email process, right? And you forward first this email for disable to the email and take backup of all this information for the disable access to the board. Okay, you need to set a lot of office for them, right? So you are doing access and redirection and so one of the things that most people here going wrong with the security courses going this one, they got to say that the user access, but most of the information for this customer we have at this time, so all of this inquiry cannot be forwarded. Then at the end, you will need to say any transaction directly, you need to check that directly to the one, and if we have access outside. If the authority was to check, I don't want to take more for this process, but we need to do it. And plus, we need to keep this to be unactive for 7 days to be ensured that there is no security event will be happening. If this user
Great thing. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I think you nailed it. Somebody is on stage, that doesn't mean that you have to be always a teacher. At some point of time, you have to be a student. And today, I'm a student of it. Thank you so much for giving this information. So, great valuable information. He has explained the sequence of action that you have to take if at all the user leaves your organization. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you, show what AD Manager Plus does when it comes to deprovisioning any user, deprovisioning an employee of your organization. But before that, please take a look at it. Here, right here. Disable doesn't mean that the account is fully locked up. Okay? Let's take up a scenario. You have a sensitive files and folder. Okay? A user who wants to leave the organization has some access towards that particular folder. Okay? Now, what most of people, like the gentleman has said, thinks disabling of that user is going to revoke the access on the sensitive files and folder, which is absolutely not. Disabling of that user might prevent the user from accessing to another computer. If you're going to use the username and password to log into that computer, it says your account is disabled, you cannot log on to that computer, which is absolutely true. But there are loopholes as you're looking at right here. You have something called as SIDs. If the user knows the SID, the same user can compromise your network and can gain access to the sensitive files and folder. Okay? So what is the best way to handle the situation? Okay? He answered predominantly because there are many things that you have to do while disabling, if the user wants to leave the organization, and see what we have in the product called AD Manager Plus. If I go to the admin section, okay, there you go. If I go to the admin section of AD Manager Plus, I'm just waiting for the screen to come, please bear with me for a second. Maybe a couple of seconds, maybe 10 or 15 seconds. Sorry about that. Alright, I'll just continue with what I'm supposed to say. I hope that the screen will populate as soon as it gets loaded on my computer. So, in the admin section, we have a policy which could be configured. The policy where you can define after disabling the user, what are the subsequent action you want the tool to take. You got plenty of actions in the list which includes removing the group membership. Okay, number one, removing the group membership. Number two, converting the mailbox into a shared mailbox, adding the forward to, and we also have the options like revoking the licenses. Okay, so you have Office 365 and you want the license to be revoked, it all can be done. So this is what the disabled policy that we have in our product, and you can see the options like this. Okay, so we have revoking of Microsoft 365 license, moving the users to a different container, removing the group membership, hide exchange mailbox, and plenty of things that you can see right here. Now, all of these actions are going to happen simultaneously where you are just disabling the user within our console. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I explained you another thing, right? Revoking the permissions from the sensitive files and folders where you don't see it right here. It's not available by default, but don't worry. It's a very simple process within AD Manager Plus. You can achieve that too. I go to the automation, and within the automation, I do have the option for creating something called as event-driven automation. In the event-driven automation, really sorry that I am experiencing some kind of issues here. Okay, but I'll just continue with what I have to say. There is a section in the automation called event-driven automation where you can configure orchestration. Orchestration is pretty much like you can just do the sequence of actions. So in the orchestration, you do have the feature right away called revoke NTFS permissions. You just need to have it configured, create an event-driven automation, set it within the application, and you are done. That's it. Literally, you are done. Whenever you wanted to disable a user, you can directly do that within the product, and the tool will take all of the actions that you have defined in the orchestration. That's it, as simple as such. If you have any questions, ladies and gentlemen, about creating an event-driven automation, my dear friend Lois is sitting here. I am here. You can contact either of us. We will help you in configuring that. Trust me, it is just going to take less than a minute for creating those kind of orchestration templates. Very easy. So, I just would like to emphasize on that part, which we have it readily available in our product. Okay, we talked about a few things. We talked about MFA, we talked about the identity security, we talked about disabling of that user, deprovisioning users, how you can achieve it with the help of AD Manager Plus. Now comes the biggest challenge. Now comes the biggest challenge, I have to say. Okay, provisioning a user. Okay, let's say a new user has joined your organization. How are you going to manage that? Generally, there are different stages, right? The order of the stages might differ from companies to companies or verticals to vertical, but I'm sure the stages that I'm going to talk about now would match almost all the, verticals. The first stage of onboarding a user, number one, is you have to create the account on the primary directory service. It could be an on-prem Active Directory users and computers. It could be the Microsoft Entra. It could be Oracle eSuite. It could be anything. But there is a primary directory service, right? You create the user over there. Stage 2. You will have to facilitate that user with mailbox. It could be the on-prem Exchange mailbox, it could be Microsoft Office 365, or it could be anything. That's the stage 2. Stage 3, you will have to provision that user into the third-party applications that you have. For example, CRM, HRMS tool, or it could be any in-house application that you have in your organization. There is another stage which is very, very critical, because that stage will define what kind of permission the user wants to have on the third-party application that you have. Correct? So 4 different stages. You might have different set of applications, you might have different set of stages, but this is the common practice of creating onboarding a user within your organization. If I am missing anything, please feel free to tell me. I will tell you how you can manage that with the help of AD Manager Plus. Now, with all that having in your mind, ladies and gentlemen, please take a look at this screenshot. Tell me, is this sufficient for a HR person who has no idea about what an Active Directory is? Can someone create a user with the help of this form? This is a question. Can you please tell me how good is this screen? How good is this form? Is your technician able to create a user with this one? Yes or no? Yes? Yes? How many say yes on this side? If you say no, please tell me what's stopping them from creating a user using this form. What is stopping them? What is stopping them? Maybe 18 years before, if somebody has said, I don't know what is this called as OCS. Anybody can tell me what is OCS? Voices? Okay. Okay. Link. Skype. I hope you know about Skype.
Is anybody using?
Sorry?
Who's using that?
That's it, yeah. Nobody uses it. OCS is nothing but Office Communication Server that is used for internal chat. Nobody uses it. Absolutely nobody uses it. There are many unnecessary information out there in this form. It's quite complicated. It's very complicated for the HR person to create a user. What about this one? What about a screen like this? If you're going to give a screen like this, you have to enter your first name, last name and choose the title. Our tool is going to complete all the 4 different stages. But the input what you're getting from, what you're going to give to the product is very, very minimal. First name, last name and the title. Is this easy? Yes, no? Great. What do you have here in AD Manager Plus is that, ladies and gentlemen, we have template-based user provisioning. With the help of the template, you can configure all the uniform information. On top of it, you can have conditions. Let's say, if the title of the new user is, let's say, engineer, I want that user to add to certain group membership. I want the user to get created with Microsoft 365. I want the respective license to be applied. I want the user to get created in one particular container. You can have everything configured in that particular template. On top of it, this tool can be integrated with any applications. I repeat, I emphasize, any applications that supports REST API. It could be a CRM, it could be a HRMS tool, it could be anything, as long as it could be an in-house application too. If it supports REST API, you can integrate that within the product so the tool can go to the additional level of provisioning that account into that product, number 1. Number 2, you can define permissions as well. What permission needs to be applied within that application, that all can be defined. This is what the biggest advantage of using AD Manager is. Right? So it takes care of all the 4 stages where it creates the user in primary directory service if it is an on-prem Active Directory or Entra ID. Number 2, it will create the mailbox. On the mailbox, what permissions needs to be applied, it could be done. Number 3, it creates the account on the third-party platform with the help of integration. Number 4, it assigns the right permissions as well. That's the best part here. Okay. Let's see if I have any luck with AD Manager Plus. I'm really sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to show these features to you, but unfortunately I have a little bit of trouble here. So, okay, that's great. So, we have this templates, and within the template you have these options for creating conditions in the template. With the help of that, you will able to achieve everything. Right? So, this is what the provisioning module is all about. You have this enable drag and drop, and you have the rules. This is the rules I was talking about, where you can have conditions. Based on the condition, the users will get provision. That's the best part here. Now, Coming to the automation section, ladies and gentlemen, we have the ability for integrating multiple third-party applications. You can see this right here. In the application integration section, we have all of these applications that could very well be integrated. Plenty of applications, you see it right here. And once again, it's pretty much readily available. You don't have to spend much of your time in writing a code or executing a script for integrating that. You can just use the wizard type, get the API details, have it configured all by yourself. If you're not able to do it, Loises, Joseph, myself, all three are available for you to assist you at any point of time. Okay, right. So we talked about provisioning the users, deprovisioning the users, so as re-provisioning can very well be done. Once again, we have the user modification template that takes care of modifying the user object. If the user wants to change from one department to another department, don't worry about doing all of the actions in multiple consoles. With the help of AD Manager Plus, you can do anything and everything. What are the subsequent actions that you want to take while changing the user's department? The tool will do that for you. That's pretty much about it. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to mention one important thing right here. If you have not used AD Manager Plus ever before, I would recommend you to please go install it. It will work as a fully fledged professional version for the first 30 days. Why am I emphasizing that? It's because of this new feature we have included in the product. Risk Score Analyzer. Just install the tool, get these information taken from your Active Directory. Of course, you have liberty for uninstalling the application after utilizing this feature, but I would highly recommend you to do it because this is going to give you all kinds of misconfigurations what you have, including the risk assessment score. It is going to tell you, okay, these are all the settings that is not configured correctly. Change it. You can make the change right from here. For example, we have this one, inactive users. You want to take some action from here, you can do it. You can take the action right from the same page. I don't have objects to show you, but it will give you an ability for doing that. Now, most importantly, this is the latest feature that we have included in the product. Access certification campaign. My dear friend, who explained about permissions, right? What kind of permissions a user is having on the sensitive folder or on third-party applications or as a member of a groups that you have, privileged groups what you have. See what this tool is going to do right here. Here, you can create a campaign. Okay, so you can just give the name, you can assign the priority, and let's say I can just give a name to it. Then it's going to get the details from Active Directory and Microsoft 365, group membership, NTFS permission, and Exchange mailbox rights. Okay, the tool is going to analyze the information from the group membership, then from the NTFS permission and the Exchange mailbox rights from here. Third-party applications will also be included in a few months from now. At this moment, it's for 3 different entities: group membership, NTFS permission, and Exchange mailbox rights. And then you can see the next screen is going to be the scheduler, where you can create a schedule and you're done. Okay, so what is this going to do? Based on the scheduler, the tool will go and fetch the information from these 3 instances, that is Active Directory, group membership, NTFS permission, and the Exchange rights, and it is going to send a notification to 3 kinds of people. Number 1, the respective owner of the group, or the user's manager, or it could be any administrator or someone you can pick up from the list. Okay, so they will decide, okay, I don't want the user to be the member of this group anymore. You click the approve button, that user will be removed from that. I don't want this user to have permissions on my sensitive files and folder. The owner can say, no, I don't want this user to have the permission anymore. It could be removed. So that is the kind of a feature we have in AD Manager Plus. That's another interesting feature. On top of it, we have a tight integration with PAM solution. My dear friend Ram has talked about just-in-time access, right? Where you can assign permission for some period of time, which can very well be automated with the help of AD Manager Plus, where the tool will have a request coming from the PAM solution, and you as an administrator can approve it, so that depending upon the timer, the permission will automatically get revoked with the help of AD Manager Plus. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to conclude the modules as of now, right here, because I have to talk about the SIEM's suite of products right now. So, it is not just identity and access management, it is identity and governance as well. That is exactly what we have in our product. Now, after my session, my dear friend Loises and Joseph are going to be on the stage again, and they're going to give more detailed information about the governance, because that's high priority in this region. So please stay tuned. This is what we have in the IAM suite of products. Any questions? Yes, sir. Loises, can you do the microphone? Yes. Sorry.
My point here that we're going to call the permission and the security part of when user leaves the organization. If this user is using smart authentication, and how can we manage it?
Okay, so at this moment we have integrations available. I'm really sorry I will not be able to show the functionality, but I will tell you the theoretical part here. You can integrate the application within the application, within our product, right? So this tool is going to go and check if the user has any access towards that application as well. Now this is going to happen with the help of API, and it is nothing to do with Active Directory permissions. So the API is going to establish a communication to the respective application, and it is going to check if user X who wants to leave the organization has any permissions, and if yes, it's going to revoke the permission from there. There are two ways you can do it. Taking access from an application can be done in two different ways. One is if the user is a member of any group that you have, and that group might have access to it, where revoking from that group it's going to be possible. We have that feature for more than 10 years. That's readily available. Now, what is the extra mile that we have gone is having an API integration with multiple applications. That's how it's going to be. Yeah. Great. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Voices? Oh.
So the lower in our company, we assign places to run into how will this work with
Okay, that's a great thing. So, depending upon the group membership, the license is going to get assigned. Once again, it's the same scenario what the other gentleman has asked for. We can once again do it in two different ways. You can either remove the group membership so the complete license will be freed up for you. But with product like AD Manager Plus, I would recommend to use the native module itself because of the feature what I have explained to you earlier. If you disable the user, automatically the entire license has to be revoked. It could be done. You can do both the things. Group membership needs to be removed. Simultaneously, you want the licenses to be revoked as well, you can do both the ways within the product. Yep. Alright, so any other questions? Great. Sorry. So we're gonna spend a lot of time in this particular module here, event log analyzer, ladies and gentlemen. Pretty much what Ram has said in his previous session. You can do all kinds of auditing. The complete infrastructure auditing could be done with the help of our tool called Log 360. Now, I don't have much of time in explaining those things with the help of my slide deck, so I will directly jump into the solution, showing what kind of features we have. First of all, Ram did say, if you have SIEM in place, the first thing that your SIEM needs to do is collection of logs. It doesn't matter what infrastructure you have, what devices you have. Any device that is capable of generating logs in a human readable format, a SIEM solution needs to collect the log. See what we have. If I take you to the log me page, you can see the complete heterogeneous infrastructure from where this application can collect the data. This includes your Windows Active Directory, workstations, workgroup computers, Linux devices, networking devices, applications, cloud applications, whatnot, anything and everything. Okay? Now, how these logs are going to get processed? We have inbuilt parser in the product that's going to process it, and once the logs are taken, you would see them right here in the report section. Now, I have a typical, I have a scenario where I have IoT devices. I have some OT devices, medical devices. And these devices can still generate logs. How am I going to configure those details within the product? Ladies and gentlemen, don't worry. There are two different options we have. The option is only one, but there are multiple ways for collecting the logs from that particular device. So first thing, you have to make the device discoverable within the tool. You can do it with the help of IP address. In that way, as long as your syslog is listening to those devices, the tool will understand there is a device with an IP address is available, it is sending the logs to the syslog. Now, the default parser is not going to be enough to process the logs. That is where custom log parser comes into the picture. Creating a custom log parser is absolutely easy. You don't have to spend much of your time. If you still have any such devices and you're not able to do it, once again, Loises, Joseph and me are available for creating that for you. But the information is you will be able to create a custom log parser within the application for understanding the logs from that. Then you would get it right here in the report section. Okay? Now, taking this little ahead, we have this particular section called compliance. Okay? Any organization needs to get compliant with your respective compliance of your region. Ram has explained that to you in the morning. See what are the compliance reports that are readily available within the product. It could be PCI DSS, GLBA or ISO. Any compliance that are required to be sent to your auditors are readily available here, right here as predefined reports. You can very well have it scheduled and send it to your auditors, so the auditors will keep informed about all of the information taken from your infrastructure. Now comes the scenario. Alexia mentioned about DORA. She mentioned about NIS2. Are they available here? NIS2, DORA, are they available? I don't think so. No, we don't have it here, right? Don't worry. What else the tool can do on top of showing the predefined compliances, you have ability for creating your own compliance report within the tool. If you're not sure about the requirement, please approach us. We will help you in creating a compliance report so that it could be available right here and you can have it scheduled. On top of it, I would like to give you an information. These two compliances which I have just mentioned, DORA and NIS2, will be part of Event Log Analyzer in 3 to 4 months from now. But on top of it, in the meanwhile, if you want to have these reports readily available, you can create the report by yourself. We have the ability of doing it. Okay. Coming to the threat detection part. Okay. Something has gone wrong. Let's say a user's workstation has been compromised, and from that workstation, the intruder has gained access to the sensitive files and folders, and a ransomware attack has happened in your organization. Okay? It's not a threat, it's an attack that has happened. How can you detect those kind of attacks, and what else you can do with the help of a product like Event Log Analyzer? Ladies and gentlemen, this is where the correlation would come into the picture. The correlation is nothing but you will have to take the data from multiple log sources. It could be a firewall, it could be the workstation, it could be the file server, then to the respective files and folders from where the rename has happened. We have some predefined correlation reports readily available in the tool. We have 149 correlation rules are available here. Okay, you see 149. In maximum of 3 months, it's going to be 1600. We are enhancing this capability here. On top of it, ladies and gentlemen, we have this ability for creating correlation rules all by yourself. And for creating a correlation rule, do you have to write a script? Do you have to write a code? Absolutely no. It is just a mere drag and drop. So logon failure followed by a logon success could be a brute force attack. In no second I have created a correlation rule for a brute force attack. That's how. It's very simple. Okay. Now what you're going to do with this correlation? We have alerts. Now this alert are equipped with two key things. Number one, we have integration with ticketing software. So if at all an attack has happened, your ticketing tool will receive an email. So a ticket can get created in your ticketing tool. Number two, the most important thing about the Event Log Analyzer is right here. See, these kind of actions could be taken. These kind of actions. I'm going to take another 5 minutes. Thank you. So these kind of actions will ensure the attack is not going to get spreaded anywhere else. Now, most importantly, it's not just one action the tool is going to take. The tool is going to take a sequence of actions. Let's say I want the user account to be disabled. I want the files and folders to get, or you can see, any kind of Windows action, services, processes, network action, you can just drag and drop it here. So the thread is not going to get continued. The tool will take all of these actions by default. That's the best part here. Okay, this is what you call it as SOAR capability, SOAR, where orchestration could come into the picture, and so it's going to take multiple actions right here. This is what I would like to emphasize. Okay, so we have integrations. The best part of integration is we have Endpoint Central that can discover vulnerabilities. If at all a vulnerability is discovered, this tool has an integration with Endpoint Central, and on those computers, if the security patches were not deployed, the tool will help you to deploy the right patches. That is what the integration is going to do for you, and this is the SOAR capability we have within the product. Now, the incident has happened, then you will have to investigate on what happened on that incident, right? That's why we have the incident workbench, where you can see the complete history of what the script has done on that local computer. We have the process hunting right here, where you can see the sequence of action which is taken because of that particular script. See how beautiful it is. All kinds of process that has been initiated by the script, you have it right here. So your SOC team does not have to spend much of your time in analyzing what went wrong. This gives you everything. Now the complete history of that user, what are all the action he has done, the properties of that user is available as well. And if at all there is a data leak happen in your organization, let's say you got a request from any blocklisted IP address or any third-party websites which is blocked, you get that information right here with the reputation score as well. If there is a data leak, you see what are all the websites that the data leak has happened, and this can also take some actions as well. So we have all of these ability in Event Log Analyzer, ladies and gentlemen. First session I talked about AD Manager, AD Subservice Plus. We also have SharePoint Manager Plus that will help you in managing permissions for the SharePoint, doing some actions, migration, so on and so forth. It's all available in the SharePoint Manager Plus. Now, we are going to give everything as a solution, okay? It's not like you want to have the SharePoint management and the Active Directory management. You have to buy the whole suite. No. Depending upon your requirement, you can purchase the module, or if you want to have it as a suite, we can give it to you as a suite as well. So as the security part, if you want to have an Active Directory auditing, we give it to you in the AD Audit Plus. We want to have the holistic view of auditing everything, we can give it to you as a suite as well. That's what the Log 360 is all about. With this, I'm going to conclude my session. If you have a question, please. Any questions so far on the auditing part? Event Log Analyzer, auditing your infrastructure, SharePoint, or we even have CASB module. I don't have much of time to explain you. We have data security readily available that can help you with preventing the users from uploading any sensitive data to the cloud or downloading it to the local computer or downloading any sensitive data to the local drive. It can very well be prevented. We do have that in the Data Security Plus module. Yes, ma'am. Right, that's a great question. I just need 2 more minutes. I'll quickly explain that to you. As of now, the Log 360 has the supervised ML, which has the UEBA module, where it understands the behavior of that user and it gives you a report. That is what the UEBA module is. And we have internal LLM platform with Zoho called ZIA, Z-I-A, which is already integrated in the cloud platform. So with the help of the ZIA, you can get more insights about the alerts that is going to trigger within the application. So that's the LLM platform. Now what we are going to do more, okay, so we are at the early stage of using the AI capabilities at this very moment. So what we're going to do a lot is, we are going to have an interactive section with the administrator of event log analyzer, and the person is just going to text the Zia telling, hey Zia, give me the alerts of all all the alerts triggered because of a brute force attack. Give me all the alerts triggered on one particular computer. So you can have an interactive English chat with the console, and the console is going to respond to it by giving all the relative information. And moving forward, all kinds of that's an interesting fact here. See, right now, the input what you are going to give it to the event log analyzer is the logs. It's what the logs we are going to receive within the application. That is what you are going to see it as a report. That's what you are going to get it as an alert. Now, moving forward, all the individual features that we have alerts, we have correlation rule, we have compliance. Those modules will be given as an input, and you're going to get more refined information, more refined output, and more intellectual and more specific information what you like to see with all kinds of correlated information. You will get it. That's what we are driving towards.
I believe the question was the risk factor of the users using artificial intelligence tools like ChatGPT, etc., and how they can be discovered in a SIEM tool, more like that. That was the question, or not what we are doing with artificial intelligence for the tool, but how we can discover and perhaps govern that risk factor, meaning users inputting sensitive data into GPT tools.
Okay.
If it's something that is already available or it's under schedule, that was the question, yes?
Okay, so perhaps I'm sorry that I thought that you're asking about the AI capabilities. Just my mistake. I would need some more time to get some data from my team on. Hopefully I'll update you on that one. Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions we have? Ram, do you have any answers for that?
About ChatGPT, that is one use case that we have identified in the company. A lot of customers have asked us about it. That is something that we are definitely working on. That's one thing. The other thing that has come up is when you have virtual meetings, you also have virtual whiteboards, and not just voice information, but even if you draw something on the whiteboard that will share. So data leaks can happen even that way. So we are exploring ways in which AI can be used for taking care of that use case. But ChatGPT, yes, that's top on the list. We don't have it currently, to be very honest.